This morning, I want to talk about one of the most powerful things that holds most of us back in life. A lot of these go running in our subconscious mind, unrecognized. And they are our programming that was put onto us, usually in our very young developmental years. They reside in our subconscious, and they are our limiting beliefs. They are typically put onto us by our caretakers, our parents. These limiting beliefs, or what is like to be called traumas, are usually fed and kept alive by one very powerful mechanism. In fact, this mechanism is probably the most destructive and life-ending, life-altering form of anger, and that is resentment. You see, these traumas and these resentments usually stay embedded in us because we hit an age, usually our teenage years, young adult life, where we have this lie that was perpetrated to us that our parents were supposed to love us unconditionally. And the reason that's a lie is it's a very unrealistic expectation, because there isn't a parent on this earth that has received unconditional love. The love that they received was conditional. And that created within them the limiting beliefs and the programming, which if they hadn't gone through any interpersonal work, any transformation, then that programming was likely put on to us. And even if you think of somebody that has had a great upbringing, there was no physical abuse, no sexual abuse, the majority of the population, and I would argue everyone, has felt that resentment towards not receiving unconditional love, or felt some form of limiting belief brought onto them in their upbringing. A lot of times these things go unrecognized because they're in our subconscious. And the best way that I can describe our subconscious or our unconscious mind is like an iceberg, if you will. Imagine you got an iceberg out there in the ocean, and if you didn't know, that the part that we see in photographs and whatnot, movies, that's sticking above water, that is 10% of the iceberg, while the rest of the iceberg is submerged under the water. And let's let that represent our mind, with the portion above water, the visible iceberg, being the conscious mind, and the portion underneath, where all our limiting beliefs are stored, would be our unconscious or subconscious mind. Now, we believe with our conscious mind that we are driving the destination of our life, our fate. And that is why Carl Jung once said, until you make the unconscious conscious, you will call it fate and it'll drive your life. I butchered that, but it's along those lines. Going back to the iceberg, how that means it'll direct your life. If you imagine we have wind blowing this way at 100 miles per hour, okay? And we have the current of the waters, the ocean, going 1 mile per hour this way. Which way is that iceberg going? Which way is it being directed? It's going to go this way with the current underwater, with that much mass underneath. And a lot of times the work with the inner work is first learning our limiting beliefs and bringing them to the surface. And we can't just attach to those or identify with those. And if we do, that's where the resentment comes in. The resentments are typically things of, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I have to perform to receive love, I have to compete to receive love. Money's scarce in our family, it has to be protected. We have to work hard in order to get money. The list is almost ongoing. And what keeps those in place is the resentment. And this is where comes forgiveness. A lot of people say, how can I forgive this or that? It happened to me. I need to be angry. Ah! Well, that's what the resentment is. And that's what keeps it there. And the choice is completely yours. The forgiveness is forgiven. And we need to give that gift to ourselves. It's never going to take away the things that happened, even no matter how bad they were. However, if you forgive the past and realize, this is where it's going to get woo-woo, that our souls, before it ever came into this life and chose life, it chose those contracts. It chose what traumas we would go through, what difficulties we would go through. If your soul made the decision that it needed to be worthy in this lifetime and wanted to learn to be worthy, then you weren't going to be born into a family that lifted that up. You were going to be born into a family that put upon you limiting beliefs of unworthiness, because the gift of that is the limiting beliefs is what we are brought here to work through. And once we work through them, that is how we gain our calling, our superpower, our ability to work with others that are also working through those. They say you pray to God for patience. You're not going to be given situations that just elicit patience in you. You're going to be given situations that test you. If you're asking God, I want to be peaceful, then you're going to be given situations that are going to test and amplify you to almost let out all that anger so that you can learn to contain those situations, not get rid of them. Just like the trees. Trees don't heal. If you have a young tree and you strike it with an axe and it puts a wound on it, that wound never heals. The tree continues to grow and it contains that injury that was inflicted. In fact, when you get to the part of that tree's too old or dangerous and you got to remove it and you cut that down, wherever that wound was, you could look in the rings, in the growth rings, and you could specifically see where that injury was all that time ago. And the tree didn't stop living. It didn't identify with the wound. It grew and contained it. So I guess as I am learning, as I am traveling and I am journeying, that everything that I once believed happened to me actually happened for me. And most of the areas of my life where I was carrying resentment or limiting beliefs didn't even come about until I started comparing to the left and to the right. What I'm meaning is that, when I was going through my childhood, which is very easy to identify as a very traumatic and painful childhood, it wasn't like that as I was growing up. As I was going through my childhood, there was bad things that happened and good things that happened and horrible things that happened and amazing things that happened. But if I look back and I asked that younger Matthew, he never would have said, my life is bad. He was just going through it, boom, boppity, boom, 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 right? And it wasn't until about 16, 17 that all of a sudden I'm looking to classmates and how other people's lives are, and oh my gosh, look at the way that those parents treat their kids, and look at the good things that they have. Then all of a sudden I did a 180, bam, and I'm looking back, and all of a sudden it's poor me, boo-hoo, that happened, that pain, I didn't receive the love the way that that person received the love, without ever recognizing and realizing that all those people I was comparing myself against also did not receive unconditional love. Listen, limiting beliefs can come from even a very loving, protective family. It could be as simple as a father telling a child, hey, let me show you a better way to do that. And in that can become a belief that they're not good enough, that their way of thinking isn't good. I know that sounds ridiculous, but we're never in control of what someone's going to receive. It could also be a father that has a young daughter, and this daughter comes rushing into the living room, and you're sitting on the recliner, that father, and he tells that daughter, you make me so happy. And then you fast forward a month, a week, and that same father comes home, and he has had the just hit after hit after hit. Some of the worst day that he's had in a long time. And that daughter comes running in, and in her mind, I make father happy. And she sees that father's distressed and not that same jovial self. Comes in the room, and the father just doesn't have time in the moment. I don't have time. Please go play, go outside, go do this, and still distraught. And that little child could literally form a limiting belief or a trauma that they are not good enough, that they are not the person that they thought that is lovable. It could be as simple as a 3-4-year-old, because our programming happens up until about the age of 7, and that's the blueprint for our life. And then it's our job later to go in and rearrange that blueprint so that we can better on serve the people around us, our children, our community. But that little child could be, there's a Christmas tree and reaching for an ornament, or there's a pack of cookies and reaching for cookies, and is very strictly told, oh, don't touch that, and literally a belief can be formed that fast in the blueprint of, I cannot have what I desire. I can't have what I want. And so I think the shift in life comes when we realize that our wounds, our limiting beliefs were literally given to us as a gift. And when we learn to work through those, we learned why our